Hello friends and welcome to Ask Zach. Today we're going to talk about one of the unsung pop guitar heroes of the 70s, and that's Andrew Gold. Of course, he deserves attention on a much broader level as the multi-instrumentalist that he was, and just all of the records that he contributed to as a kind of arranger, harmony vocalist, player. But today we're going to focus on him as a guitarist, and specifically on two songs that he played on for Linda Ronstadt, and his guitar parts really helped make them hits, and they're off the same album. They are, of course, You're No Good, which I just played the solo, and then also When Will I Be Loved, both off of Linda Ronstadt's 1974 kind of breakthrough album, Heart Like a Wheel. So we're going to cover that, a little bit of Andrew's history, and talk a little bit about his gear, and we're going to talk about the making of those songs and what gear was used to create those sounds that were on those two big hits. So, all right. Before we get started, a little pause for the cause. So if you've been enjoying the show and you haven't done it already, well, please hit subscribe. If you've already subscribed, then I really appreciate you supporting the show. There's a lot of different ways, but the best is Patreon. So there's a link to my Patreon page, and there's all sorts of different levels and things you can learn about there. Also, there's merch below, and also my website, askzach.com. So just check those things. Also, there's tip jar information in the description if that's the best thing for you to do. But so let's dive in. So Andrew Maurice Gold was born in 1951 in Burbank, California. Of course, Burbank is really just part of Los Angeles at this point. But he was born into a very musical family. His mother, Marnie Nixon, was kind of a stunt vocalist. So she was the voice of Natalie Wood in West Side Story, and she was also the singing voice of different actresses in movies, but also had a career of her own. Andrew's father, Ernest Gold, was famous as a composer, and he probably his most known work would be Exodus. So he was, again, born in 51, and when he was 13 in 1964, he was able to meet the Beatles at some type of fundraising event, and that kind of helped push him over the edge with musical parents, and also the explosion of the Beatles. And Andrew was very influenced by the music of the day of the mid '60s, and so he kind of wore that musical influence his entire life. You could hear the influence of the Beatles, the Byrds, and the Beach Boys on just about everything he did. He was always his own person, but you could always hear that little bit of influence, like the Beatley influence in the solo on You're No Good, or even the Byrds kind of influence in some of the arpeggiated things that he would do. But he had a series of bands, in the LA area, and probably the most noteworthy would have been Brendel, which had Kenny Edwards, who had of course, been part of the Stone Ponies with Linda Ronstadt, had Wendy Waldman, who, of course, is one of the most famous and prolific pop songwriters of all time. Carla Bonoff, who is a great artist and songwriter who had a long solo career, and Andrew. And so it was the four of them were Brendel, but they didn't release an album until actually in the 90s. They regrouped and did some recording and some shows. But where Andrew's career really takes off is when he joins Linda Ronstadt's band along with Kenny Edwards. Kenny Edwards, of course, played bass and sang harmony, and Andrew was kind of doing what was needed. So he would play piano or guitar or drums or what have you. And they were starting to make the Heart Like a Wheel album, and they were working on tunes, and one of them was the song You're No Good. And they had already kind of worked it up, and they had been doing it live. And then they appeared on the Midnight Special. And I'll put a link to that in the description. So in the performance, it's kind of a hodgepodge of musicians. It's not really her band per se. It's kind of a mix of players. So you have Andrew playing a black Strat with a rosewood fretboard, which is actually Linda Ronstadt's guitar. It's her 62 Strat. And it looks like he's using either a, bassman or bandmaster or showman, head, blackface one with a 212 cab. Then there's Little Feat's drummer, and then there's like Skunk Baxter playing, bongos, and so that's kind of the tune is kind of almost there. It's not quite there yet. Because they hadn't gone in the studio and recorded it, and so you can hear that it's missing the middle section, the big guitar solo and the breakdown. Well, they went into the studio and they decided to leave this section free. Now in the studio version, it's Ed Black, who was the guitarist and pedal steel player in Linda's band at that point. He's kind of playing those kind of rhythm hits that you hear at the beginning of the tune. Andrew is playing most of the other instruments. He's playing Wurlitzer. He's playing drums. I believe he might be playing, I'm not sure if he's playing bass or not. But anyway, he's playing most of the other instruments, and they left this 16 bar, kind of gap in there. And while Linda was gone, of course, this is famously told, is that while Linda was gone, that he and the producer, Peter Asher, recorded this middle section, and that Linda hated it at first because, of course, it sounded like the Beatles, and it does sound Beatle-esque, but it's got other elements also. I think apparently having a Beatle influence at this point was kind of not really looked upon kindly in the country rock circles, as it were. So I think that was also one of the reasons why Linda had some reservations about this, but they ended up, of course, releasing it, and it was a big hit. The way it was recorded was Andrew used her that black 62 Strat that again he had in the other performance, and he plugged it into Linda's Deluxe. So she had a Fender Deluxe amp. I'm guessing it was like a blackface one, but that was turned up to 8. And that is kind of the distorted part that you hear playing the low notes and, in the solo, and also, of course, doing the bending and such. That's that guitar. Then you have other parts that were recorded direct with the same guitar, and a lot of, there was an MXR EQ that was used to boost highs, and then there were two Uri 1176 compressor limiters that were used, and it was plugged direct. So that's what you hear some of the other guitar parts, specifically toward the end where you have the strings come up really loud and you have these arpeggiated parts. That's the Strat played direct through a bunch of compression, and also there was an EMT disc echo unit that was apparently warped and added a little warble to the note like chorus. And so that was, so they used that, and that's what gave it kind of the chorus sound. Also, most everything was double tracked, and at times Andrew would either have them mess with the tape speed, or he would detune the guitar slightly just to create a chorus effect. So that's You're No Good. And of course that was a huge, I think it was Linda's biggest hit. The next one was When Will I Be Loved? This one, it only has direct guitar. It's the same Strat, except this time instead of I think it's on the back pickup on the first one. On When Will I Be Loved, it's definitely the back two pickups, because he's even said that in an interview. And it was into the two 1176 compressor limiters with the MXR EQ. Also, there was a noise suppressor that was used that had a real fast gate, and that's what helps give it that very kind of keyboard sound. Also, you have the fact that it's like there are 3 guitar parts that have been doubled, so it's 6 tracks of guitar, and they're all direct. And the last one, the one that's the highest part, was actually played by slowing down the tape, and he played it normal and then speeding it up. And so that's why it has such that Les Paul kind of sped up track, because again, that was a trick that Les Paul developed, where he would slow the tape down, play something, and then of course when you sped it up, it sounded almost like a mandolin and at really high speed. So those were the 3 guitar tracks that were all double. They were harmonized, and that's the solo on "When Will I Be Loved." Again, it was the black Linda Ronstadt 62 Strat on the back 2 pickups, and those 2 tracks really made they really made this album sell. And I'm gonna pull it out real quick. It's a fantastic album, and if you don't have it, then you definitely need to give it a listen or pick it up. Also, on just a brief side note, also this features some wonderful B-bender work by the great Bob Warford, who was a kind of friend and protege of Clarence White. And so you have Dark End of the Street and Willin' that feature wonderful guitar solos by Bob Warford. Also, just another side note, I really love the banjo opening part on "Faithless Love," and the harmony vocals of Emmylou Harris on "I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You," the old Hank Sr. classic. So anyway, this is a golden record, and highly recommend that you pick that up. So then, old Andrew, continued to help with Linda Ronstadt's career, but he also started a solo career on Asylum, and he released a number of solo records. Probably my favorite is, or my favorite 2, I should say, are this one, "What's Wrong with This Picture." So I picked this up in the 90s. I think either after reading an interview with Andrew Gold that was done by John Jorgensen, or it was after seeing Brendel on television, and they did some of their own tunes, and they also did "When Will I Be Loved," and he replicated the solo using Ricky Skaggs' purple Glaser Tele with a B-bender, and he played the solo on that, and it was of course it missed the harmony, but it was very close, and it was interesting. He even used the B-bender. So kudos to Andrew Gold. But this album is great, and it has of course, this has "Lonely Boy," which of course was a big hit, and it doesn't feature Andrew playing guitar. That's actually Waddy Wachtel, but this is a great one. And then also you have "All This in Heaven" too. This has the "Thank You for Being a Friend," which of course was a hit, and then also used as a theme for the Golden Girls. But of course, he didn't sing. Another session singer sang the TV theme. But this is a really fun album. It is at times more keyboard oriented, especially on the tune "Never Let Her Slip Away," and that's a great one. Also, this album has Freddie Mercury from Queen singing some harmonies on here, and so. Yeah, and it's got great harmonized guitar and great songs, great production. All right, after his Asylum era kind of record label career kind of came to an end, he kind of spent time with Graham Gouldman, I think, from 10cc. So he was with him for a while. They had a group called Wax. And then Andrew would go back and forth. He would return to Linda Ronstadt's band, every once in a while. I think when she was touring with Aaron Neville, he played with her for a while. There's even there's a Tonight Show appearance where Andrew is playing guitar along with Mike Landau, and they're backing up Linda Ronstadt and Aaron Neville. That's quite nice. And then he played with her in some other performances in the 90s. In the 90s, of course, he did the Brendel reunion, which I already kind of mentioned, and that was very well done. And there's performance of them at the Ryman with Ricky Skaggs that can be found online, and that's where they do "When Will I Be Loved," and you get to see again Andrew playing the solo on Ricky's purple Glaser Tele with a B-bender. Then, of course, he also did the Final Frontier, the "Mad About You" theme song, in the 90s. And he kind of started, releasing some independent records and doing some tribute bands where he was really able to kind of relive, some of his, early love of like the Byrds and the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And just a great musician. Also had a nice career as a songwriter. He wrote songs for Trisha Yearwood and Winona Judd that were hits. Like I Saw the Light for Winona, and Better Your Heart Than Mine for Trisha Yearwood, which is one of her better tunes that I wish would have been a hit. Then, of course, he had a bout of cancer, and then he died from heart disease of some kind, some heart failure, and that was in 2011, and he was only 59 at the time. But he had just a great legacy, and he had a big influence on harmony guitar and popularizing that, both on the records he played on, and also it became kind of a thing because you had, I guess you could say that the Beatles did it early on with "And Your Bird Can Sing," but of course the Allman Brothers did it in more of a in their southern blues rock kind of fashion. But Andrew really did it in a wonderful pop way, and of course he did it on Art Garfunkel albums and all sorts of different records. And of course I'll put a Spotify playlist together so that you can hear a bunch of both Andrew Gold and also tunes that he played on. But yeah, great influence on guitar playing and guitar sounds, using both amped sounds, with like using Linda Ronstadt's Deluxe, or going direct, just creating a lot of really interesting guitar sounds and interesting guitar parts. Gear he used through the years. So, of course, early on you see him with Linda Ronstadt's Black 62 Strat. Then later on he gets a 70s Strat that's maple neck, black, with a black pickguard but with white pickup covers and white knobs. And you see him play that a lot with Linda Ronstadt. You also see him playing a Les Paul Deluxe with the mini humbuckers. And probably, during all that time, early on he's using, Fender amps. And then by the time Linda Ronstadt's really going strong, they're all using Music Man gear, which I'm guessing they had an endorsement, or I guess also they were just popular at the time. Then, of course, later on in his career, like in the later 70s, you start seeing him using Rickenbackers and Gretches and Vox amps and things like that. He starts kind of wearing some of the Beatle influence a little bit more. And in the 80s, he starts playing a Tele Custom, like probably a 66, transition logo one. That's what you see him playing with Linda and Mike Landau and Aaron Neville on the Tonight Show performance. And he gets into all sorts of things. I had Jerry Jones bass 6 and, all sorts of different guitars, Rickenbacker 12 strings and, but always had really great guitar sounds and was always more concerned about the music than just being a guitar player. So, of course, he played a lot of different instruments well, and of course was an amazing harmony vocalist and singer in his own right. So, I hope this just kind of gives you a little appreciation for him. I'm going to grab my pick real quick. One little interesting thing. Today I'm just using my Danocaster, kind of Frankenstein Tele. This is a Phil Kubicki body. And I'm using a little Fender Vibrochamp Reverb, and I'm using an old Ibanez Mostortion. One thing that's interesting about the tune is in the original recording you have in the breakdown, you have this kind of thing. So it was played that way on the recording, but then in the live versions of it, every time they start this descending thing and say, which is really nice. I like both versions. And then also it's interesting seeing where at times he'll play the solo by himself, and sometimes Dan Dugmore, who was the other guitar player and pedal steel player, would sometimes play harmonized parts on that. And also Doug Moore would play the harmony, or at least one of the harmony parts on When Will I Be Loved. So that's how they would pull that off live, because how are you going to do that? Now, at one time they had Andrew, Waddy Wattell, and Dan Dugmore in the band all at the same time. And so they could all play, electric guitar, and they could pull off the When Will I Be Loved, track, pretty much. They wouldn't get the same sound because it wasn't all direct, but you had three really great, guitar players. All those are great. And Dan Dugmore is severely underrated because he's more known as a Nashville pedal steel player, but he's played so much guitar on Nashville recordings, and he, even played like the opening acoustic part on, let's see. Golly, I'm blanking. Oh, it's the Warren Zevon tune, and Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me. So that's Dan Dugmore at the beginning of that. And of course, Dan Dugmore is also the pedal steel part on Blue Bayou. So, all right. Sorry for that little pause there. But yeah, go out and listen to some Andrew Gold. Also, I need to give a note of thanks. One, Mix Online had a wonderful article about You're No Good that I pulled some information from. And also, what was really helpful was this old country guitar magazine by Guitar World that again had this interview with Andrew Gold that was conducted by John Jorgensen. And so, yeah, that was really neat. So a lot of great info from that, where he kind of got more technical, and of course John's going to ask great questions about what he was using to get sounds and such. So thanks to John Jorgensen and to Mix Online. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.